Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. There is a river that does not appear on any map. No sailor has charted its curves. No merchant has named its bends. No kingdom has claimed its banks. Yet it flows through every age of the world, quietly and patiently, like a memory that refuses to be erased. They call it, in whispers, in half-remembered prayers, in dreams that fade with morning, the river of forgotten gods. It lies far beyond the borders of the living lands, past mountains that only ghosts remember and forests that no longer grow leaves. It winds through a valley where the wind rarely speaks, and where the sky hangs low and heavy, as if listening. The waters of this river are not blue, nor green, nor any color that ordinary eyes were meant to see. They are made of names, names once spoken with devotion, once carved into stone, once carried on the breath of thousands. Now they rest here, they sleep, and the gods who once wore those names, they sleep too. On the night this story begins, the river was unusually restless. Its waters shivered with faint, dim light, like stars submerged beneath the surface. Faint ripples passed along its length, touching forgotten inscriptions carved into the stones along its banks. Each stone bore a name. Each name, once worshipped, now weathered. Each letter, once bright, now softened by time. Some were from ancient temples swallowed by sand. Some from mountain shrines long abandoned. Some from cities that no longer remembered why they had been built at all. But the stones remembered, and the river did too. Above this silent valley, the sky was thick with clouds the color of old ashes. No moon watched, no stars peered through, yet a presence moved through the night. Soft footsteps approached the riverbank. The visitor's name was Lyra. She was not a goddess, not a priestess, not a chosen one. She was something far more dangerous to the quiet of forgotten things. She was curious. Lyra had walked for a long time to reach this place. Long enough that her boots had worn thin. Long enough that the dust of abandoned roads clung to her clothes. Long enough that even her doubts, which had followed faithfully at her heels, had grown tired and fallen behind. All that remained with her now was her question. It had started as a faint thought years ago, when she was still a child listening to old stories by a dying fire. Where do gods go when no one remembers them anymore? The elders had smiled sadly and patted her hair. Gods do not die, they said. They simply fade. But where? She had insisted. Far away, they answered. They closed their eyes, as if the question itself made them weary. Lyra had not forgotten, and questions, when held long enough, become paths. Now she stood at the edge of the valley of forgotten gods, her breath a soft mist in the cool air. Her lantern gave off a dim, trembling light, but it felt small here, like a candle held up against a long, ancient night. She lowered it respectfully. The river did not like bright lights. That much she had been warned. Only the soft glow of her lantern remained, lighting the worn stones near her feet. She crouched, brushing moss away from one of them. The surface of the stone was smooth, but faint letters still clung stubbornly to it, as if refusing to vanish completely. Lyra traced them with a gentle fingertip. A name, one she did not recognize, one no one recognized. The stone shivered under her touch. Or was that simply the river's current, murmuring nearby? She whispered softly, "I don't know you, but once someone did." The air sighed in response, so faint, she almost thought she had imagined it. Lyra straightened, her eyes drifting toward the river itself. Up close, its waters looked strange. At first glance, they seemed dark, like deep ink. But if she looked more carefully, she saw threads of light weaving through it. Small flickers, glows, pulses, like fireflies caught in a deep, gentle flow. She stepped closer. Whispers rose from the surface, not in words she understood, but in tones and echoes filled with longing. She could have turned back then. Most people would have. But Lyra had walked too far to let fear turn her around now. She knelt at the water's edge. "I came to find you," she whispered. "All of you. The ones no one speaks of anymore." The river seemed to still. The distant ripples stilled. The faint glowing threads slowed. The murmurs quieted into a deep, listening hush. Lyra took a slow breath. Her reflection did not appear in the water. Instead, she saw something else. Shapes, faint and distant, moving slowly along the riverbed. Figures, some tall, crowned with fading wreaths of light, some small with many hands, some animal-shaped, with eyes that once burned with meteors. They lay at the bottom of the river like sleeping statues, draped in currents woven from unspoken prayers. Lyra's heart tightened. "So this is where you went," she whispered. "When we forgot." The water rippled softly. One of the figures shifted. Not much, just a hand. A pale shape, long-fingered, stirring the water like a dream turning in its sleep. Lyra leaned forward, eyes wide. "Can you hear me?" No answer. But the river did something it had not done for a very long time. It spoke. Not with a single voice, but with many. Not in one language, but in fragments of dozens, layered together. Yet out of all those echoes, Lyra heard one sound clearly. Her own name. "Lyra!" She nearly dropped her lantern. "Yes?" she whispered. The water glowed faintly. The sleeping shapes stirred just a little more. "You remember." Lyra's throat tightened. "I don't know who you are," she admitted softly, "but I remember that you were." The river seemed to sigh. A gentle wave brushed against the stones, washing away bits of dust and moss, uncovering more of the carved names along the shore. Lyra watched them appear. "So many," she whispered. The wind tugged at her hair, cool and steady. Lyra knelt in silence, reading as many names as she could. Some were carved in alphabets she did not recognize. Some were broken, incomplete, missing pieces. Some were barely more than scratches. Yet each one had weight. Each one felt like a story. She placed her palm over one of the stones and closed her eyes. "What are you to them?" she asked the river quietly. "Grave? Prison? Sanctuary?" The river hummed. Its currents coiled around her fingers like cool, flowing thread. "Neither," it murmured. "We remember." Lyra frowned slightly. "You remember?" A ripple brushed against her wrist. "Forgetting is heavy." The voices whispered through the water. "Names fall through years, fall through stories, fall through silence. We catch them. We keep them from vanishing." Lyra exhaled slowly. "So you're here to save them." "Not save," the river replied. "Hold, until someone remembers." Lyra's heart ached at that. "And if no one ever does?" The river did not answer. Its glow dimmed just a little, like a candle flickering in the wind. Lyra leaned back on her heels. Around her, the valley felt like a great sleeping chest, full of slowed heartbeats, held breaths, resting echoes. She spoke gently. "When I was a child, I prayed to gods whose names I didn't understand. I just said the words the elders taught me. I never wondered if they were listening." She smiled sadly. "But I think some of you were." The water stirred. "You came," the voices murmured. "Few come, fewer listen." Lyra swallowed. "I'm listening, I promise." The air grew cooler. The clouds overhead shifted slightly. Something in the valley changed. Soft light, dimmer than starlight, dimmer than a dream of dawn, began to rise from the stones along the riverbank. Lyra watched, mesmerized. Each name she had touched glowed faintly. "Why now?" she whispered. The river answered, "Because you asked, because you cared, because you call." Lyra looked down at the water. "I can't speak all your names," she whispered. "There are too many. I don't know the old languages. I don't know the rites, or the songs, or the right way to hold my hands." The river's currents brushed gently against her. "You spoke once," it murmured. "That is enough." A faint tremor ran through the valley. The sleeping gods at the river's bottom stirred again. One lifted their head, turning slowly as if toward a sound only they could hear. Lyra's pulse quickened. She leaned closer, her voice soft as a breath. "Do you want to be remembered?" The answer rose from beneath the water in a single lucid whisper. "Yes." It was not loud. It did not shake the earth, but it carried the weight of ages. Lyra closed her eyes. "Then I will remember you," she said quietly. "I don't know your stories yet. I don't know what you asked of your people. I don't know what they gave you." She pressed her hand over her heart. "But I know this, you mattered. Once. That is enough for me to start." The river sighed, a deep, almost peaceful sound. "Then stay," it whispered. "Walk along our banks. Read what remains. Listen to what sinks between the stones. If you remember, just one, we will not be entirely lost." Lyra opened her eyes. She looked down the winding length of the river, disappearing into mists at either end. Names slept there. Old temples that no longer stood. Old prayers no longer spoken. Old gods no longer called upon. But for the first time in a long, long while, someone had come to ask where they had gone. Lyra picked up her lantern again. This glow felt different now. Not like a fragile light in a heavy night. More like a small ember in a room full of resting coals. She stood slowly. "All right," she whispered. "I'll walk." The river brightened just a little. The currents whispered around her boots as she took her first step along the bank, toward a stone marked by a fragment of a name she could almost pronounce. And behind her, beneath the dark, slow water, 1,000 sleeping gods turned in their dreams, just enough to face the sound of someone beginning to remember. The river of forgotten gods flowed silently beside Lyra as she walked. Its currents glowed faintly, threads of pale light winding through darkness like veins in deep stone. The valley stretched long and quiet around her, vast enough that each step felt like she was walking not through a place, but through someone's memory. The stones along the bank grew more numerous now. Names crowded beside one another, some carved deep and sharp, others worn smooth by centuries of water and wind. Lyra found herself slowing, touching each one gently, sometimes with a whisper, sometimes with a silent breath. She had expected sorrow. Instead, she felt presence, a watchfulness, a listening. The air seemed to lean toward her, as if the valley itself wanted to hear the sound of a living walker. Lyra paused beside a stone marked with only 2 surviving letters. T. She whispered them softly. At. Nothing happened. Then the river stirred. A ripple broke the surface. A faint glow rose from beneath, and beneath her feet, the earth exhaled, as though something sleeping deep below had heard its name called, however incomplete. Lyra swallowed. "I didn't mean to wake you." "Not fully." The river brushed her boots gently. "Wake comes slowly," it murmured through its shimmering currents. "Names rise like dawn." Lyra continued walking, lantern in hand. Its flame flickered with each step, reflecting off the water in trembling lines of gold. But the river's glow was stronger now, threads of deeper light weaving slowly, as though following her. She frowned slightly. "Are you guiding me?" The river whispered. "We follow memory. Memory follows you." "Me? Why me?" Ripples brushed her fingertips as she knelt to refill her lantern oil. "Because you ask," the currents replied simply. She blinked. "That's all it takes?" "Yes." Lyra stared out across the dark surface. Felt unfair somehow, too simple, too fragile. How could so many lost names be waiting for something as small as a question? And yet, questions open doors that even gods forget how to open. A low hum drifted along the bank. Lyra froze. The sound came from deeper downriver, soft, melodic, almost like humming underwater. She stepped carefully toward it. The river darkened, then brightened again in pulsing waves. Lyra felt the hair on her arms lift. A stone near her feet split along an old crack, shedding a piece of worn surface to reveal a name beneath. Erilun. She whispered it aloud before she could stop herself. Erilun. The river froze. Then, light erupted beneath the surface. Forms shifted below, long silhouettes turning, drifting upward. Lyra stepped back, heart pounding. The river spoke in a single clear voice. You call one who remembers. A shape rose slowly beneath the water, not breaking the surface, just coming close enough that its outline became visible. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest tighten. Tall, graceful, crowned in soft, dim silver as though wearing moonlight older than the sky. Its eyes did not open, yet Lyra felt it looking at her. A whisper brushed her ear. Who speaks my name? Lyra nearly dropped her lantern. I didn't mean to disturb you. The voice interrupted gently. You remember. Lyra hesitated. I don't, but I want to. The figure drifted closer. Its dark hair waved like silk in the river's current. You said my name, it murmured. No one has spoken it in 1,000 years. Lyra lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. The current curled around her ankles, warmer now. Do not apologize. Names die only when no one seeks them. And you seek. Lyra lifted her head. Who are you? The figure tilted its crowned head. I was the keeper of the night's first journey. The one who guided the moon before she learned her own path. Lyra's breath caught. You guided the moon? Yes. What happened to you? The soft glow around the figure dimmed. When the world changed, when empires rose, when new gods came, when the moon no longer needed her first guide, the figure drifted downward, as though growing heavier. My name fell from the tongues of mortals. Lyra thought of the half-broken stone. Erilun, she whispered again. The water brightened, soft, grateful. The figure sighed. You speak it gently. Lyra smiled faintly. I want to learn the rest of your story. Erilun's face, still submerged, softened. Then walk further. Many names sleep ahead. Some dream, some ache, some wait, and some, his voice deepened, are dangerous. Lyra's spine stiffened. Dangerous? She repeated. Yes. The river whispered through Erilun's fading outline. Some gods were forgotten for reasons darker than silence. Not all names should be woken. Lyra swallowed. How do I know which ones? Erilun's answer was soft but clear. The river will warn you. It remembers what you cannot. Lyra nodded slowly. Will I see you again? A faint ripple curved beneath the water, like a smile. You walk the river of forgotten gods. You will see many of us again. Then the figure sank slowly, dissolving into glowing ribbons of memory until nothing remained but the quiet pulse of light. Lyra exhaled shakily. That was a god. The river hummed approvingly. Yes, I spoke to a sleeping god. Yes. Lyra placed a hand over her heart. I think I understand now why I came. The river's glow brightened. You came to remember. The path ahead narrowed as the river curved into a deeper gorge. Stones grew larger, older, some cracked in half, some nearly buried beneath sand. A strange heaviness settled in the air. Lyra slowed. Is something wrong? The river dimmed, its glow fading into a muted, cautious shimmer. Careful, it whispered. Lyra lifted her lantern slightly. The water darkened dramatically ahead. Not the quiet darkness of sleep, but the dense, heavy dark of something buried too deep for light to touch. The stones here bore no names, just deep scratches, gouges, and scars. Lyra felt a chill crawl up her spine. Why are these stones blank? The river's voice grew very quiet. Because their names were removed. Lyra frowned. Removed? Why would someone? Before she could finish, the currents surged strongly enough to splash her boots. Do not speak loudly here, the river murmured. The ones who lie in this part do not sleep as peacefully as the others. Lyra's heart raced. What happened to them? The river hesitated, then replied, some gods were forgotten, but some were erased. Lyra held her breath. Why erase a god? The river's currents chilled. Because some names were never meant to be spoken again. The wind picked up. The clouds above shifted. The gorge seemed to press inward. Lyra swallowed hard. Should I turn back? The river flowed softly around her ankles. No, you must walk, but walk with care. And listen when we tell you to stop. Lyra nodded slowly. All right. She held her lantern close and took her first step into the part of the river where forgotten gods slept uneasily, in the chambers of erased memory. The deeper Lyra walked into the gorge, the heavier the air became. It wasn't the heaviness of danger, not yet, but the heaviness of memory that did not want to be touched. The walls of the gorge rose steeply on either side, their stone faces carved with faint marks that looked like claws, or blades, or hands trying desperately to hold on. Lyra slowed her steps. Her lantern flickered, protesting the air around it. The river whispered, walk gently. Their dreams bruise easily. Lyra swallowed. Whose dreams? The currents dimmed. The ones who were erased. Here the water moved differently. It did not shimmer with names. It did not glow with soft, sleeping light. It drifted in slow spirals, dark, dense, heavy, as though carrying a burden older than sand. Lyra stepped closer. Shapes lurked beneath this part of the river, but unlike the sleeping gods she had seen before, these shapes were twisted, their outlines distorted, their bodies fractured as if memory itself had cracked them. They did not appear peaceful, and they did not appear asleep. Lyra felt a chill drop down her spine. River, she whispered. What happened to them? The river hesitated. We do not speak their names. Because they're dangerous? No, murmured the currents. Because they are in pain. Lyra's heart tightened. But why erase them? The river's glow flickered weakly, as though recalling something too old to bear fully. Some gods grew hungry for worship, for power, for fear. They demanded more than mortals could give. Lyra nodded slowly. People stopped worshipping them? No, the river said. People chose to forget them for their own safety. Lyra stepped closer to the water's edge. But forgetting a god is not easy. No, the river whispered, and erasing one is nearly impossible. But mortals tried, and something of the attempt remained here. Lyra took a shaky breath. Are they angry? They are unfinished. One shape beneath the water stirred. It rose slightly, its form rising from shadow into half-light. Lyra froze. This god did not look like Erilyn. It did not look peaceful or elegant. Its outline was jagged, as if its limbs had been broken and reformed incorrectly. Pieces of old symbols clung to its shoulders, but they were cracked beyond recognition. Its voice rose from the river in a low, aching murmur. Why? Lyra stepped backward. The river surged protectively between them. Stay, it commanded softly. Do not approach. Lyra held her breath. Why no voice? No name, no temple. The creature's shape rippled with pain. Why silence? Lyra felt tears sting her eyes. She hadn't expected to feel sorrow for something so frightening, but there was a deep, hollow ache in the creature's voice, an ache older than any human grief. Lyra whispered despite herself, I'm sorry. The creature's form twisted toward her. Who hears? Lyra tightened her grip on her lantern. I do. The river practically roared through its currents. Do not answer him. Lyra flinched. The twisted god recoiled slightly at the river's surge, its form trembling. Light burns. Then it sank back beneath the water, disappearing into the spiraling dark. Lyra exhaled shakily. That one wasn't sleeping. No, the river said quietly, and others in this place are far less stable. Lyra steadied herself. Then why bring me here? The river's tone softened. You wanted to remember. Remembering is not gentle work. It includes what should be cherished and what must be left behind. Lyra bowed her head. I understand. Her path led deeper still. The gorge narrowed so much she could touch both walls with her hands. The water ran silently beside her, not daring to splash. Her lantern dimmed further, its flame shrinking timidly. Lyra whispered, It's okay. I'm here. But her words sounded small. The gorge began to open again, just enough to reveal a circular chamber of stone. At its center, the river widened into a still pool. The air grew warm, too warm. Lyra approached cautiously. What is this place? The river answered in a whisper that trembled. The chamber of the unnamed. Lyra frowned. But everything here has a name, or had one. No, the river replied. Some gods were never given names at all. Lyra blinked. How can a god not have a name? The water swirled. Because they died, before they were remembered. Lyra's heart sank. People created them? Yes. Raised them in fear, or in desperation, or in loneliness, and then abandoned them before they even learned what they were. The river stirred uncomfortably. They were young, too young to survive forgetting. Lyra knelt beside the pool. Its surface was still, perfect mirror of darkness. But beneath it, she sensed dozens of tiny, fragile presences, flickering in and out like broken candle flames. She whispered, "You poor things." Something pulsed beneath the surface. Faint, frightened glow. Lyra leaned closer. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're not alone." A small, trembling voice rose from the water. "You see me?" Lyra nodded. "I see you." The tiny glow brightened. "Name?" Lyra placed a hand lightly on the surface. "You don't have one, but you're still real." The water warmed beneath her palm. "Real?" "Of course." The glow pulsed in fragile joy. "Then, I can stay." Lyra felt her throat tighten. "Yes," she whispered. "You can stay." The river sighed like a creature finally releasing tension. The fragile glows brightened gently, not rising, not overwhelming, just drifting in peaceful patterns beneath the water. "You helped them," the river said softly. Lyra exhaled. "I wish I could help them all." "You cannot," the river answered. "But you can help the ones who still want to be known." "And the dangerous ones?" The river darkened slightly. "They must remain asleep." Lyra swallowed. "And do they stay asleep?" The water turned cold. "Not always." A faint vibration passed through the stone floor of the chamber. Lyra froze. What was that? The river grew tense. "One of the erased is stirring." Lyra's pulse hammered. "Because of me?" "No. Because of him." "Who?" The river fell into absolute silence. Then whispered, "The one whose name was not forgotten, but stolen." Lyra shivered. "Stolen? By who?" The river's voice trembled. "By gods. By men. By time." Lyra felt something shift deep beneath the pool. A presence rising from far below. Deeper than sleep. Deeper than pain. Deeper than mourning. A presence that did not glow. A presence that felt like an old wound opening. The river whispered urgently, "Lyra, you must leave this chamber." A soft rumble shook the stones. "So cold." The voice rose from the deep, not twisted, not broken, but hollow. "So dark." Lyra backed away. A shape began to rise beneath the water. Slow, heavy, ancient. The river surged around her. "Run." But Lyra did not move. Not because she was defying the river, but because the rising god had lifted its head and whispered, "Child, come back." Lyra's lantern went out, and the chamber fell into perfect, breathless dark. For a long moment, Lyra heard nothing. No river, no whisper, no echo of ancient stone. Just the sound of her own heartbeat hammering in the perfect, suffocating dark. She held her breath, listened, waited. Somewhere beneath the water, something old, and wounded, shifted again. Child, stay. The voice was soft, too soft for its size, deep, too deep for anything mortal, and filled with a cold ache that seeped into the stone itself. Lyra forced her trembling fingers to relight the lantern. A single spark, then flame. Yellow light spilled outward, trembling. The pool in the center of the chamber rippled once. A shape stood beneath its surface, not fully risen, not fully formed, but watching her. Only the eyes were clear, eyes that held the color of forgotten storms. Lyra stepped back instinctively. The river rushed between her toes, currents swirling protectively. Lyra, leave, it urged. He must not wake fully. Lyra swallowed. Who is he? The river hesitated, then whispered. He is the god who once had a name so powerful mortals feared to speak it. A name that commanded oceans, bent mountains, and twisted storms. Lyra's breath hitched. A god that strong was forgotten? No, the river murmured. His name was stolen. The water shivered in dread. Others took it. Other gods. Other men. Other empires. Lyra frowned. Why steal a god's name? The pool trembled. Power. Dominion. Fear. They carved pieces of his name into their own, leaving him with nothing but silence. Lyra stared at the rising figure. His body was cracked like broken stone. Its arms hung heavily. Its shoulders sagged beneath an unseen weight. But its eyes burned with a longing so vast it could swallow the whole valley. Who speaks? The god's voice curled through the chamber, ancient and fraying. Lyra found her own voice. I am Lyra. The god's head tilted, as if the name meant something. You? Remember? Lyra shook her head. I don't remember you, but I want to understand. A tremor rolled through the chamber, pebbles falling from the walls. The water hissed in warning. Do not speak with him. He draws memory like breath. He will take from you to fill what he lost. Lyra ignored the fear twisting inside her. She stepped forward, just enough to let the god see her clearly. What do you want? She whispered. The god rose a little higher. His cracked chest glowed faintly with echoes of stolen symbols. My name. Lyra felt her heart ache. You want your name back? Yes. His voice trembled like a temple collapsing. Without it, I am unmade. The water swirled violently around Lyra's boots. Do not offer to speak for him, the river warned. His name was taken so he could not rise again. Lyra looked between the river and the wounded god. Why was he feared? The chamber fell silent. Even the water hesitated before answering. He was not a god of cruelty, the river whispered. He was a god of storms, wild, powerful, unpredictable. Mortals loved him, feared him, begged him. And when other gods wanted his worship, they tore his name into pieces. Lyra clenched her jaw. That's not fair. The river sighed. Few endings in the age of gods were. The god beneath the water lifted a shattered hand. Child, help! Lyra stepped closer despite the river's warning. What can I do? The god's eyes brightened faintly. Hope flickered, old, brittle, desperate. Say my name. The river surged in a panic. No! Lyra froze. The god's fingers curled, trembling in sorrow. No voice, no name, no place, only dark. His voice cracked like stone under frost. Lyra's lantern flickered. The river swirled with pain. He is not lying, it whispered. But he does not tell you everything. Lyra's voice softened. Tell me. The river hesitated. His name was not stolen cleanly. It was torn apart, broken like pottery, shattered into dozens of fragments. Each fragment was taken by someone else. Mortals, gods, time itself. Lyra frowned. So if someone tries to speak his name, the water dimmed. They speak only a broken piece of it. Lyra's heart dropped. And what happens then? The voice of the river deepened with dread. He rises in brokenness. Another tremor shook the stone floor. The god beneath the water stirred painfully. Cold, dark. Lyra's throat tightened. She whispered toward him. I want to help you, but I don't know how. The god lowered his head. Remember me. Lyra blinked. That's all. Yes, remember that I was. The river softened. He does not ask for his power, it murmured. He asks not to be erased. Lyra fell to her knees. I can do that, she whispered. I can remember you existed. The god's cracked body glowed softly, like a coal reigniting. Then, I am not lost. Lyra touched the surface of the water gently. I'll remember you, she whispered, even without your name. The god shuddered. Thank you. His form dissolved slowly, not in pain, but in release. He sank beneath the water like a stone being laid to rest. The river exhaled deeply. You did well, it whispered. You gave him what no one else could. Lyra wiped her eyes. What was he called? The river grew still. No one knows. His name was broken completely. But the water brightened faintly. You gave him a new memory. Lyra nodded. Then his story isn't gone. No, the river said gently. It is beginning again. Lyra stood. Ahead, the gorge opened into a wider passage. The stones glowed faintly. The river shimmered with cautious hope. And Lyra walked forward, toward the next forgotten name, waiting to rise from the deep. Lyra stepped out of the chamber of the unnamed with her lantern held close to her chest. The river's glow softened behind her, returning to its quieter shimmer as the heavy air of the chamber faded. The gorge widened, allowing the sky, still dim and starless, to open overhead again. Lyra exhaled shakily. Her hands still trembled. That god, she whispered, more to herself than to the river. He didn't want power. He just wanted to be remembered. The river rippled in agreement. Yes, even the strongest gods fear oblivion. More than storms, more than silence, more than death itself. Lyra hugged the lantern a little tighter. I think I understand. You understand? The river said gently. because you have listened with more than your ears. The river curled around her ankles like a guiding thread as she continued walking. The stones changed as she moved deeper into the valley. Here the carved names were clearer, older, but not broken. These gods had not been erased nor abandoned in fear. They had been forgotten by time, not by intention. Lyra knelt beside one stone with curling characters she didn't recognize. It glowed faintly the moment she touched it. "I wonder who you were," she murmured. The river replied, "This one was a god of wandering stars. Mortals once looked to them to find lost roads." Lyra smiled softly. "Then we would have gotten along." She walked farther. More stones lit under her passing fingers. "You remember all of them?" Lyra whispered, awe in her voice. "Even the ones who haven't stirred in ages." The currents hummed. "That is our purpose. We hold what the world drops." Lyra stopped. "But who remembers you?" The river shivered. "You do." Lyra blinked in surprise. The water brightened, almost shyly. "People think gods guard mortals," it whispered. "But mortals guard gods as well. They guard them with stories, with memory, with breath." Lyra touched the water gently. "I'll remember you too." A soft current circled her wrist like a grateful hand. The path widened into a broad, shimmering basin, a calm mirror of water that reflected nothing overhead. Names spiraled along its edges in long, winding patterns. The river whispered, "Here lie the gods who remember themselves." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" "Some gods do not fade when mortals forget them. Some carry their own names inside their being. They remain aware, even when the world sleeps on." Lyra hesitated. "Are they awake?" "No," the river said, "but they dream with purpose." The waters of the basin rippled slowly. A soft hum rose, not frightening, not pained, but steady, like a chorus of ancient voices singing far away. Lyra approached the basin's edge. "What are they dreaming of?" The ripples brightened. "Of themselves." Lyra frowned. "That sounds lonely." "It is," the river replied, "but also powerful." A pulsing glow rose from the center of the basin. Lyra felt her heart skip. A shape formed beneath the surface, graceful, tall, crowned with twin spirals of light. Its voice drifted through the water. "Child, why have you come?" Lyra steadied herself. "To remember." The figure rose slightly. Its features remained blurred, as if made of starlight and distant thoughts. "Few mortals come to remember anymore." Lyra knelt. "Does that bother you?" The figure paused. "No, but it aches." Lyra reached out, her fingers hovering above the water. "I can listen, if you want to speak." The basin glowed brighter. The god's voice softened. "I was a god of beginnings, of the first idea that took form. Mortals once whispered to me when they began new journeys or new dreams." Lyra felt a warmth bloom inside her chest. "What happened to your worshippers?" "They learned to begin without me," the god said gently, "which is as it should be. But," its voice dimmed with quiet sorrow, When they forgot my name, I forgot my purpose. Lyra's breath caught. You forgot yourself? Yes, but you're still here, Lyra whispered. I remain, the god replied, as long as the idea of beginnings remains. But my name slips from me. Lyra closed her eyes. Tell it to me. A long silence. Then, I do not remember it. The river glowed in shared grief. Lyra whispered, Then let's give you a new name. The god stilled. A new name. Lyra nodded. If your old name is lost, then you deserve one you can carry again. The god's form shimmered, trembling with emotion. What would you call me? Lyra placed a hand over her heart. Let me think. She looked around the basin. The soft ripples, the gentle hums, the glow like a pulse of creation. You're still here, she whispered, still holding beginnings, still shaping the idea of starting again. She smiled softly. I'll call you Ariner. It means the first light of a new path. The basin brightened, not violently, not overwhelmingly, but with a warm, steady golden glow. The god whispered, Ariner. The name fit the water like a seed settling into earth. Yes, that feels true. Lyra's eyes shimmered. Then that's who you are. The river sighed with deep contentment. You have given him what was lost. Lyra shook her head. No, I just helped him find what he already carried. Arner lowered his luminous head. Thank you, child of memory. Lyra bowed. As she turned to leave the basin, Arner's voice drifted to her one last time. Lyra, take care. She paused. Why? Arner's glow dimmed slightly. There is a place ahead where even the river cannot protect you. Lyra's heart tightened. What place? The valley's end, Arner murmured, where the river flows into the sea of the unmade, where the oldest gods lie. Lyra felt her throat go dry. Oldest? Like forgotten? No, Arner said quietly. Older. Older than memory. Older than names. Older than stories. Older than the world. Lyra whispered, What are they? The river answered in a voice she had never heard from it before, a voice heavy with fear. They are the gods who were never meant to be remembered. Lyra felt cold all over. And I'm going there? The river wrapped a current gently around her wrist. You asked to remember. You cannot turn away now. Lyra nodded, breath unsteady but determined. Then take me. The basin dimmed. The path beyond darkened. And Lyra stepped forward, toward the edge of memory itself. Lyra walked with careful steps, her lantern casting a trembling glow ahead of her. As the river narrowed into a twisting silver thread, a hush fell across the valley. Not silence. Silence is gentle. This was the absence of even silence, an expectant emptiness. The river whispered urgently, Stay close to the light. Lyra nodded, though her hands trembled around the lantern's handle. Ahead, the gorge ended abruptly. The river spilled over a low stone lip and slid downward into a widening basin that stretched as far as her lantern could reach. The air grew colder. The world grew darker, and Lyra realized this was no ordinary river mouth. This was the threshold of something far older than forgotten gods. The river spoke again, its voice faint with dread. Lyra, we are here. Lyra stepped forward, and the world opened. Before her lay an expanse of dark, still water, so vast and so unmoving that it felt like looking into the beginning of nothing, the sea of the unmade, a place where memory dissolves, where names lose their shape, where even gods fear to linger too long. Lyra whispered, I didn't expect it to be so still. It is not still, replied the river softly. It is empty. Lyra shivered. What sleeps here? The river hesitated, then answered with trembling honesty. Not gods, not names, not stories, but the remnants of what existed before stories had meaning. Lyra felt her breath hollow in her chest. Something ancient stirred beneath the unmoving surface, not rising, not forming, but shifting, like the slow turning of a creature too large to imagine. The river pressed its currents protectively around her ankles. Do not call to it. Do not touch the water. Do not speak any name here, not even your own. Lyra nodded, breath shaking. What happens if I do? You will be remembered by nothing, whispered the river. And nothingness is very hungry. A faint ripple crossed the sea. Not near her, far away, but so powerful that Lyra felt it in her bones. Like a distant thunder within her spine. A shape formed briefly beneath the water, too large to comprehend, too shapeless to hold a form for long. Lyra staggered back. What was that? The river nearly retreated in fear. One of the old, from before worship, before names, before meaning. Lyra swallowed hard. They don't want to be remembered? No, the river murmured. They cannot be. Lyra's hand trembled. Then why did we come? The river's glow dimmed. Because even the oldest darkness must know that someone walked here. Not to awaken it, but to bear witness. Lyra took a steadying breath. Tell me what to do. The river curled around her feet gently. Walk to the water's edge. Slowly. Lyra obeyed. Each step was heavy with dread. The sea waited, vast, hollow, unblinking. When she reached the shore, the river whispered, Place your lantern down. Lyra hesitated. But then I'll have no light. You will, the river said softly, because you carry memory in your breath now. Lyra kneeled and set the lantern on the stone. The flame flickered once, then steadied. The river took a deep, rippling breath. Now speak, Lyra whispered. What should I say? Say this, murmured the river. I remember the forgotten. I honor the broken. I walk among the unnamed. And do not turn away. Lyra repeated the words, each one sinking into the air like seeds into soil. When she spoke the final line, the sea trembled, not violently, but with recognition. A sound rose from its depths, not a voice, not a roar, not a song, a simple, ancient exhale. a sigh older than the sky. The sea whispered back, "Mortal, you walk where even gods fear." Lyra's knees weakened, but she did not step back. She answered softly, "I walk because someone must, and I remember because someone should." The sea stirred again, its darkness curling like smoke beneath glass. "1,000 ages have passed," it whispered, "and none remembered." Lyra placed a hand over her heart. "I do." The vastness of the sea seemed to pause, then calmed completely. The river exhaled in relief. "You have done what no mortal has done in millennia." Lyra stepped back, voice trembling. "What did I do?" "You acknowledged the oldest truth," the river whispered, "that even the unmade once longed to be shaped." The sea dimmed into stillness again. The river curled warmly around her. "It is time to leave," it said gently. "You have walked the river's length. You have carried forgotten names. You have given memory to the lost. You have spoken to the oldest shadow." Lyra nodded slowly. "It feels heavy." "Memory always is," said the river softly. "But it also shines." Lyra walked back up the path, the lantern warm in her hand, the basin quiet behind her. As she passed each carved stone, its glow pulsed gently. A goodbye, a gratitude, a recognition. Even the chamber of the unnamed felt lighter, its trembling presences calmed by the thought that someone had seen them, not as gods needing worship, but as beings needing witness. When Lyra reached the familiar part of the valley, the river spoke a final time. "Will you return?" Lyra smiled softly. "Yes, and next time, I'll bring stories to give back to you." The river shone with quiet joy. "We will be here, holding the names, until you speak them again." Lyra turned toward the distant horizon. Morning would come soon, but she carried a new light now, not in her lantern, but in her memory, a light made of forgotten gods, and names that slept too deeply, and ancient beings older than stories. And as she walked away, the river whispered one last promise. "You will never walk alone again." Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth.